Welcome to Season 2 of the Bean Pod, a podcast about decentralized finance and the Beanstalk Protocol. I'm your host, Rex. Before we get started, we'd like to again remind everyone that we here at the podcast are super bullish about Beanstalk Protocol and other DeFi projects. But as we've seen time and time again, this is still a risky space. So, with that in mind, always do your own research before investing in a project, including anything covered here in the podcast, and never ever invest funds that you can't afford to lose. And with that, on with the show. Intellectual honesty is a cornerstone of this podcast. Our main purpose at the Bean Pod is to learn and then facilitate learning for you, our listeners. When we advise all of you to do your own research before investing, we mean it, and we're doing it alongside you. There are a few excellent resources out there if you're looking to get a working knowledge of a variety of DeFi topics. These creators don't focus on coding or technical details, but instead offer practical models of how projects or organizations work. Their content is vital for bridging the gap between crypto natives and non-natives, setting up the broader industry for future success. Ceazor, of the YouTube channel Ceazor Snack Sandwich, is just such a creator. He currently has over 300 videos posted about a huge range of topics within crypto and DeFi, and is known for his clever and entertaining infographics. Ceazor is kind enough to join us in the studio today to talk about his work. Well, Ceazor, thank you for joining us. So to jump right in, how about you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in crypto?
Well, I'll start at crypto. Basically, I discovered Ethereum and Bitcoin and this kind of stuff at the bottom of the COVID crash. It was probably the best time to discover it. However, when I discovered it, I was hesitant, right? I was like, what is this weird ETH thing? And I was kind of playing around with stocks at that time. In the past, quite a while ago, I was trading Forex, like TA style trading Forex. And I got wrecked pretty bad just because, whatever. I just made bad choices or anyhow. So then I started just try to do stocks because it's like a lot more passive than, Forex trading, right? With leverage, right? So then after I came across, I think I was using eToro, and they had some options for crypto as well. And then I started, going down that rabbit hole. And so I basically, bought my first little bit of ETH at the bottom of the COVID crash. And, it would have been nice to just go all in then, right? But I was super hesitant. So I got in there, and then I'm intrigued with it because it makes sense to me. I'm a very logical person, and a lot of crypto is very logical, and just I might not be a mathematician, I might not be able to do complicated math, but I can understand why something makes sense, and that's kind of what crypto offers to its users, right? For the most part, right? There's obviously speculation and popularity, which is not logical and predictable, so to speak. But that's kind of why I got into crypto, and then I just started researching everything.
Yeah, it's interesting how many folks we talk to that have a background either in traditional finance or got involved through something like Forex and said, okay, there is this set of rules or norms or whatever around what I have been doing. If I've been trading Forex or I've been, trading stocks or options or derivatives or, there's this set of rules and norms that's kind of built in traditional finance. And then they see the opportunity that cryptocurrency offers by, not being locked by specific trading hours and not being, kind of molded into these boxes that have made, wealth building or successful trading difficult that we see in traditional finance. And it's amazing how many folks we run into that say, that was really it. It was the next logical step.
Well, when I was in forex and stuff like that, I took a course in forex, like not like a registered course in like a university or anything like that, but like kind of just like a trading, like some guy who has a trading strategy and sells it basically, right? So I took that, and one of the things that he sold, or he gloated about forex, was the ability to trade like 24 hours a day, right? And then like of course crypto now is 7 days a week as well on top of that, right? So that was one of the things that I kept thinking about when I was like watching the charts with stocks, is that I can't remember what it, like the market hours, like like the institutions can buy and sell like 1 hour before everybody
Yep.
else, and
Yep.
that to me is just ridiculous. Like
Hmm.
that's crazy. Like that's not fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they
Special
basically,
amount of power, institutionalized
yeah,
power. Yep.
yeah. So that's kind of what really like brought me to crypto in a sense of like, oh, it's not that like 24 hours, 7 days a week, and then nobody has specialized treatment when it comes to trading, right? Like when I first came in, and then like the whole idea of like decentralization, like FTX is an obvious example of why I didn't see FTX doing what they did, but it was definitely from the very beginning I saw that as an issue. Like why would I want to leave my money with this company that I don't know anything about? Like even putting money into the bank, the TradFi banks in the world, like you don't know what they're doing with your money, right? Like they're not transparent completely about like what you're exactly where your money is going, and that kind of got me as well into crypto and kind of made me a little more interested. And then of course like the lucrativity, like how lucrative it has been for me because of the timing that I just fate dialed me those cards at that time when I got at the bottom of the bull run and just things just kept going up, right?
Hmm.
So it definitely, that probably played a huge role in my interest level of crypto. Like if I had joined right like a week ago, then I might be in a totally different mindset than I am
Sure.
right now, right?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say right now we're seeing the other end of that bullwhip, and it's really interesting to have conversations around future adoption or retail adoption in the current context, and it could be a completely different point of view.
Well, there's definitely a lot of people who are like severely wrecked. Like just in the past like 4 months, if you had decided like, oh, it's a good time, like if you bought the top, there's going to be tons of salt, right, everywhere, and that'll slow things down. Like I've talked to people in the real world that are like, yeah, that stuff's a scam. That's crypto's crazy, and and because they got wrecked, right? And of course, like because it's so, you can seriously get very quickly wrecked. Like stocks are, they're pretty bad. They're down pretty bad right now because of the macro and stuff like that. And people are wrecked if they had bought the top of Tesla or something like that right now, right? But traditionally speaking, like stocks have a pretty good like track record for not wrecking people, right? For the most part, right? There's still bad things, but like people always remember the worst thing that's happened just recently, and crypto has had some really bad things. Like when I talk to people in the real world about crypto, they always ask me, and I always like tell them that it's great, and I talk about the power of DAO, the ability to like vote on things and stuff like this, and but I always preface or caveat things with like, oh, it's dangerous. Like exploits are brutal, right? Like the amount of money that's been taken in the past 2 years through exploits is it's astronomical, right? So I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't, like, if I'm shilling to like normies, I shouldn't really be like, you could lose it all by just sticking it in a contract, right? But I don't know. That's just the way I am. Like, I like to explain things truthfully and then just allow people to make the decisions for themselves. I remember quite a few years ago, I was kind of like, I got my insurance salesman's license just as like a side job, like, and I was a terrible insurance salesman because like I would just explain to them, like why these specific insurance packages, like investment insurance packages, kind of make sense and how they can cover you and give you like retirement and savings and stuff like that. And I'd be able to explain it, but then I wouldn't be able to really push them to buy it. You know what I mean? I would be like, here's what it does. If you're interested, go. I would never be like, you need to do this. Like, this is important. I couldn't do that. And that's kind of, what you can see through my channel and stuff like that, and through my content, is that I hold that same mindset. Like, I never tell people what they should or shouldn't do, or even what I think they should or shouldn't do, because that's just not my character, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And one of the things that I know that the Bean community has really appreciated about your work in general and your work, for as it relates to Beanstalk is, we've got this theme of intellectual honesty. We are looking to be a protocol and a DAO and a group that is transparent and open and trying to figure out the right way to do whatever the thing is we happen to be doing at the time, whether it is laying down the foundation of a set of tokens, or if it is providing support for, a group that's looking to build on top of Beanstalk, or if it's researching a potential improvement or implementing a potential improvement. Intellectual honesty is that overarching theme. And now I would say for Beanstalk, security right along with that. And really the two are intertwined. That is what we're seeking after. And that's something we've really come to appreciate about your work as well, is that desire for intellectual honesty.
Well, that's the whole idea of Beanstalks and their on-chain governance, was that, it wouldn't be there would be no, centralized idea, a control over anything. Like, there would be no team being able to just suddenly do whatever they wanted, right? And that's the important thing. Like, I see the benefit of both of these aspects in DeFi. Like, I'm all over the place, and talking to lots of people, lots of teams, and that's kind of like what I do well, is just kind of spread myself thin, right? But like, some of the teams, they maintain centralized control over their protocol to a pretty strong degree, right? But I still don't. It's not that I don't dislike that idea, because some of those protocols I really like, and that's because I have had conversations with the team, and I know them on a personal level, and I understand why they want to maintain that control. But then on the other side, you have like things like what you're talking about with Beanstalk and just other protocols that are very, very DAO proper, like a proper DAO, where they're run completely by token holders or through some sort of governance mechanism, right? I see the benefits of both of them, right? But like, obviously, like, a centralized team has more ability to do harm, to rug or to exploit or to just take advantage of users, right? It's a matter of like, that's why it's so hard. Like, for someone who's new to crypto, and let's say they go into one of those centralized protocols, and they start asking questions, they might not get the answers or that ability of, character judgment that I have been able to get with that specific or those specific protocols, because of, my friendship with them, if you want to call it that. So I do understand the benefit of being fully decentralized, and I do agree that there's a heavy benefit. But I also like the ability of a team who understands their product very well to be able to make sure it doesn't have any problems, or to like do things that are with a longer vision. You know what I mean? Because a DAO is very in the moment. Like they're really worried about the current issue and how we're going to deal with it. And it's harder to for a DAO to think in like a 3 year, 4 year, 5 year time set because the people are fickle. They come in, they join the DAO, they worry about a couple things, and then they get bored and they taper off or something like this. There's both of those pros and cons in the system, but like I definitely prefer the DAO over the centralized. It's just I'm saying that there are some centralized systems that like the code is not centralized, but maybe the tokenomics or the reward schedule or something like this, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting discussion even amongst some of the contributors in Beanstalk, and I had a good discussion just yesterday about the ability to make decisions quickly, and it seems like that is something that in a DAO structure, some of that quick decision making is sacrificed in the name of security and the broadest possible opportunity for voices. And it's not necessarily a problem that can be solved. It's just a tension that needs to be managed. If a project has a centralized team, then they may have that ability to think longer term, or they may have the ability to make decisions in a faster way. But yeah, on the other hand, you have that risk that comes with centralization. And then on the other side of the coin, in a more a DAO oriented structure, a very flat structure, you have a wide breadth of voices that have equal footing, but at the same time it can be a little bit harder to make decisions quickly or make changes during decision making processes, or being sensitive to changing scenarios. And so it's just a tension that we learn to manage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like just like in a properly run DAO, like a proposal needs you need to leave it time for voices to be voiced. And if you don't, then you're actually like rugging those people's voices because someone might have voting power or have an idea that is sound. And if you fast track and they're just not present during that time, then you lose that benefit.
So Caesar, you've been talking about, you said a minute ago that one of the things that you do well is you spread yourself thin, and I wanted to ask you about that. It seems like you have looked into a laundry list of different projects. I mean, how many different projects have you researched?
It would be hard for me to say exactly, but like I've got 300 plus videos. So those are I generally if I take the time to read the entire docs, then I take the time to make a video. So I've definitely looked into more than 300 protocols and stuff like that, but there's been lots of them that I've kind of gone through and like, oh, this is a Uniswap fork in this sense or that sense, and just kind of moved on, or joined a Discord and kind of didn't really get motivated to make a video because of whatever reason. It just wasn't fresh, or maybe my motivation levels were low at that during that time, and I just didn't do it. So quite a bit. And like my basic rule of thumb is that like I want to see something that I haven't seen before. Like people sometimes message me and they're like, "Oh, we have this protocol. It's the same as this protocol, but it's launched on that chain. can you do a video for us, or can we do a uh, a collaboration? They like to use this word collaboration, and I I always to me it's like I don't like. There's no reason for me to explain the system that you've copied that I've already explained. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if there's like a small change to it, like, instead of like rewarding this aspect, we reward that aspect. Then it's just kind of like, well, you can just I can just people can just watch this video and then just say that, oh, we don't reward this, we reward that. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. So it's kind of hard for me to do a video unless I'm motivated and interested because of the system I have for my videos.
What are the most unusual projects that you have come across that you're like, wow, this is really like, either this is really unique, this is completely insane, this is an obvious rug. Like, I mean, maybe if it's an active project and you think it's an obvious rug, you can leave that to yourself. But like, is there anything that like, that, as you've done all of your work and research that's really stood out to you as being particularly unusual or noteworthy?
Okay, yeah. I can make a couple comments on this. Like, generally speaking, if I release a video, for the most part, it's something new and interesting and exciting at the time. It's like I'm very fickle in that sense. Like, I don't, I tend not to look back too much and kind of like, oh, I just kind of look forward at the next new thing, the next new shiny thing, right? But so any kind of innovation that just kind of changes things drastically is is new and sparkling. You know what I mean? Kind of like most recently, the most new and different and interesting thing I've seen was like Dala. Inverse Finance has this new FIRM firm style stablecoin, and that kind of really like made me feel like, oh wow, this is cool. Like regardless of like like the team or the history of projects and stuff like that, I I think when teams kind of come together and they design something new, then this is interesting. Like one of the teams that I really like, who has kind of a recently has a bad track record, is like also Bancor, because they really flip things a lot. They when they release something, it's very different than what is currently already happening. So it's both of these two. Like I was listening to one of their community talks recently, and they were talking about they have this new design for an AMM where each token you put inside has its own curve. So it's kind of like if I put ETH and USDC inside this pool, then I can say, oh, I only want my USDC to be traded for ETH at a price between 2,000, 3,000 US dollars. And I only want or the opposite, I'm sorry, between 1,000 and $2,000, right? And then I only want my ETH to be traded for USDC at like $3,000 to $5,000 or whatever curve I decide, right? So it's kind of like on-chain limit orders with a band of like a curve, like a band of prices instead of a whole bunch of individual limit orders. So this is very interesting, and this kind of stuff when that amazes me that they've come up with this idea and stuff like that. So these are the kind of the projects that I like, the kind of the things that happen when that I see, then I get excited about, like, this is very different, this is very interesting. They what they've done, like the Inverse Finance has the guy from there. Like I don't have any dollar, I don't have any inverse tokens. I'm not part of that ecosystem, but when he released that, it's clear that he's, the devs or the team, they are monitoring, understanding, and thinking about the current stablecoin ecosystem. Do you know what I mean? So this is kind of what I like. In regards to what you said about like rugs, I've been pretty lucky on rugs. Like I don't think I've ever been like severely rugged, because I'm pretty hesitant on actually putting my money. Like I've done all of those videos, but I haven't put money in most of those protocols because I'm very hesitant about it. Like the worst, my worst, my worst kind of downfalls have been exploits, and that's like understandable because a team doesn't get exploited on purpose for unless it's a rug, right? But for the most part, they don't really get exploited on purpose. But I think I've only covered maybe I don't off the top of my head maybe 3 or 4 protocols that were like rugs because if when someone makes a rug, what they generally do is they take the easy way out. They take like, oh, let's take this protocol, let's fork it, jack up the APY so people come, and then we'll rug them, right? But that's not interesting to me because it's just another fork. So maybe that's why I'm guessing here. That might be why I'm you know I've been safe for the most part from rugs, or it might be karma if you believe in karma or fate or something. I don't know, right?
Oh, it's a really interesting, like, organic way to navigate, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about things being interesting. And I mean, you're right. In a lot of ways, rugs aren't interesting because they're almost not made to be interesting in any sense beyond short-term gains.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, like what I said about like inverse finance or bank or even Bean, right? Like the amount of effort that had to be put into these new designs doesn't warrant a rug because a rug can be so easy. Like people they just need to do what I said, just fork something, change the like APYs so people come and then rug them, like and it's also much more expensive to do like a rug on Ethereum, and that's kind of where I mostly am. So maybe, and I don't know why. Like I was on Phantom for quite a long time, and there wasn't a lot of rugs there either. And I'm not sure. Like maybe I'm not sure why. Maybe because the people on Phantom were, you know, a little more capable than people who are off ramping B Binance US dollars or BNB to Binance Smart Chain. Like that's a very easy way. It's the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the barrier of entry to Binance Smart Chain versus the barrier of entry to Phantom is much more different. Like you in order for you to get your assets onto Phantom, you need to understand bridging and DeFi and stuff like this. But to get onto Binance Smart Chain, it's just you basically can go straight from Binance right into Binance Smart Chain. So people who are just not doing their due diligence, not doing their research, will more likely end up on Binance Smart Chain or BNB chain, whatever they're calling it now, and then therefore be more easily to be victimized, right? So I don't know. Maybe those are just thoughts. It's not a theory. I haven't put a lot of thought into it, but just something that's just come to me now.
Sure, it's certainly interesting. So now to take just our last couple minutes and pivot. So when it comes to Beanstalk, what drew you to Beanstalk as a particularly interesting project?
The first thing would definitely be the complexity. Like I looked at it as a kind of like a challenge to to explain what is Beanstalk because it's it was fun for me to read and try to understand it and build flowcharts for it because it wasn't so easy. Like, and that's maybe kind of one of the maybe a con. I don't want to say it's a bad part because the complexity of the system makes it work, right? But I think maybe that's why adoption's harder for Beanstalk than say something like I don't know USDC or something. Like it's the amount of the knowledge barrier that people that when you go to the website or when you try to interact with Bean through the website Beanstalk, it's not simple, right? It kind of, it requires a fair amount of research and just to kind of understand even like the basic options that you have there and all the data that is presented, right? So maybe this is why the first thing that kind of attracted me to it, because when I started looking at Beanstalk, it wasn't pumping, right? It wasn't the APY wasn't very high. The price peg was not like pre you know how it was pre-exploit, right? Like it wasn't like that when I first came in. It was potential, and I saw it as like, oh, this makes sense. Like algo stable coins were still kind of also like acceptable. You know what I mean? Like there were quite a few of them around. Like there was, of course, some rugs or failed versions like Ampleforth and Basis Cash and stuff like this, right? And then all the forks on Binance Smart Chain as well. But it kind of looked like a algo stable coin to me. I know it's not, but it's still, it can be kind of like, if you explain it as an algo stable coin, then it kind of makes it a little bit less difficult for people to understand what's going on, right? Like why there's beans and what are the beans coming from. But I think that's what mainly attracted me to it, was like it was like a challenge for my mind. And like sometimes I make videos and I'm like, okay, that's done, and I feel good, and I walk away from the computer after it's published and shared and tweeted out, and I feel like, oh, I feel kind of proud of like, oh, my ability to take that complex thing and simplify it down into a simple video for people to understand. And Beanstalk did that for me to a high degree because it was a challenge to understand.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. What I hear over and over again is that it's very much like an onion. Not to stick too close to the farming analogies, but bean is like an onion in the sense that there are enough layers to where you can build a cursory knowledge, and you say, okay, there's something more here. Okay, and I get the idea that the price of a bean oscillates around $1. That's like you said, you can essentially equate it to any other algo stable. But then you start to work into deeper layers and you find more and more things to learn about and to jump off into. And it's really, it's one of the things that Bean offers that's particularly unique, and I would say continuing to grow in terms of its depth and richness.
Like I even consider the US dollar an algo stablecoin, right?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
it's just the algorithm's just not on chain and not predictable, right? So I don't think the algo aspect of a stablecoin is what makes it a problem. Like Luna did not fail because it was an algo stablecoin. It failed because it was backed by Luna, and that aspect is what made it go to zero, right? Or maybe you don't want to call it going to zero now because it's not at zero, right? But that's what made the wreckage happen, right? So, like, the U.S. dollar is backed by what? Like basically government belief, right? Which is even, I don't know, maybe better, maybe worse than being backed by Luna. I don't have a comment on that because it has been proven to be effective. That back the U.S. dollar backed by the infrastructure of the U.S. government, right? In that sense, and all of the aspects that they employ to give it value, right? So yeah, so Beanstalk. The only thing I find that about Beanstalk that is kind of a deterrent, maybe a reason for people to kind of look away, is because of the farm theme. You mentioned the farm theme, and maybe people think of it like, oh, magic beans. What's this? They don't take it seriously, right? Because of it's their beans, right? Like I like it because I'm degen, right? And the idea of like going back to basics and using beans as a monetary like a token like a value or trade a monetary you understand it's for trade and selling and stuff as a dollar. I like this idea, but like there's like all the fairy tales about Jack and his magic beanstalks. You stupid idiot! Why'd you trade our cow for beans? Right? There's. I think people might kind of go to that, but when they start digging deep, they're intelligent and they have the ability to like the IQ high enough to be able to actually, or the motivation to apply their IQ to understanding it, then they see like what you said, like the layers of complexity and interestingness. Like I do like it, and I don't. I have my beans siloed, and I try to. I don't have any intention of like exiting hugely, but I'm also heavy into the what do you call them
The unripe.
yeah, unripe. Yeah, there we go. Unripe
Yep.
beans. I'm kind of heavy into that, so that's
Yeah.
kind of where most of my
Are
my
are
interest
we
is.
all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, Caesar, thank you so much for talking with us. Thank you for your time. It was a great conversation. I always appreciate all the work that you're doing, and not only in researching and creating videos about Bean, but about DeFi in general and cryptocurrency. So thank you so much for all of it.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. You can find Caesar on YouTube at Caesar's Snack Sandwich, and that's Caesar spelled Ceazor. The Bean Pod is a production of Beanstalk Farms, a decentralized autonomous organization. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Medium, Discord, and our home on the web at bean.money. You can also find me on Twitter at RexTheBean. And as a final reminder, this podcast is not financial advice. Thanks again for listening.